Who am I and how do I know all this information? I'm getting asked more times than not if I can send some resources as to how I come up with all this information. So I felt it's important that I divulge who am I, what my background is, and the mission in and of itself. My name is Christy Myers. I appreciate you being here and let's do this. I started my professional career in emergency medicine in 1998. I spent over 20 years in several different sectors, from wildland firefighting through ground ambulance, through emergency room technician, while all gaining enough experience to go work for the fire department for a little under 7 years. At the same time, going through paramedicine, and also giving back through education. So I started teaching in 2002 as just a little baby professional expert, which then ultimately led to me earning tenure. I started that tenure track in 2017, the same time that ketamine found me. And in between there, I definitely had some other adventures. I flight paramedicine was one of the greatest accomplishments in that era. I also worked, in air rescue, and then ultimately did my undergrad and my grad through GCU. And so I have a bachelor's in public safety. I have a master's in leadership. I have an associate's in fire science. I have an associate's in paramedicine. What does all that mean? It just means I've done a lot of things. But it wasn't until I was asked to start teaching anatomy and physiology, right? So as I was getting a lot of traction as an adjunct faculty member, I was teaching primarily pharmacology. Now, I will share one thing, and that's you can't wing it in paramedic school, not as an instructor without, them really not liking you. And so my mission became not to become that woman, and so I really set out to understand the information so deep, especially when I had to start teaching anatomy and physiology. I remember when they told me that that's what I would start teaching, I was like, I'm a paramedic, right? And so as I embodied that lecture, I also at the same time had experienced from deep suffering in my own personal story what is going to be a spontaneous Kundalini activation or spontaneous Kundalini event in which, from deep suffering, I experienced this massive awakening where it felt as if every energy center in my entire body was blown wide open, and so much fear left my body while simultaneously opening up new consciousness, in which at the same time that I started down this 10-year track in academia, I was also fully enmeshing myself into consciousness. It's so fascinating to me that most of my professional career, we always talked about altered states of consciousness, loss of consciousness. Did they lose consciousness? What's their level of consciousness? The Glasgow Coma scale to assess their consciousness. All these things we always talked about consciousness, but what is consciousness? And so I really started to dive in. I've spent close to 10,000 hours with some of the greatest teachers. I say close to each and every one of them in the sense that I studied different individuals collectively, right? And really embodying, I mean, I still go to these teachers to this day to really increase the depth of my understanding of what it is we're doing here on earth and what it means to be able to share this information and to really have answered the call to follow my mission and my purpose. So in 2017, ketamine found me, right? Little did I know that in 2020, I would start building my own medical practice where I specialize in ketamine infusion therapy. And I would then ultimately leave academia and a full tenured position in 2022 to go set out on this journey, which has now transpired to me sitting here sharing not only who I am and part of my story, but also what the mission is to not only bring awareness to the legal, medically accessible, important ketamine infusion therapy. Infusion is the key word to the evolution of our consciousness, what that looks like to temporarily suspend our limbic system to usher in new ways of thinking, being, and doing while simultaneously reducing suffering. Ketamine is one of the greatest tools that we have right now that's legal and accessible across the nation, globally, quite honestly, because it's recognized by the World Health Organization. Now, there may be some variabilities in some different third world countries, but for the most part, the World Health Organization honors ketamine as a required medication because of its versatility and its importance in the medical community. We have 25 years of data on ketamine infusion therapy for a multitude of different diagnoses. I spent a good part of the last decade not only lecturing on ketamine, pulling it into my classroom and allowing it to pertain to anatomy, physiology, also pharmacology, and the theoretical side of medicine. The more that I started to do this, and the reason I made mention of this spontaneous Kundalini event that I experienced in 2016 is because as I was lecturing on this medicine, I started to experience these streams of consciousness. And this isn't to sound woo AF, it's literally to allow you to hear the story in my truth resonantly, because it's kind of silly to not share this messaging and pretend that it didn't happen to me. The captivation I started to experience, the downloads of information, the gnosis that started streaming through my consciousness as it pertained to the anatomy, physiology, and also the pharmacological side of our existence, right? One of the things that, if you would have asked Christy in 2004 when I was first going to medic school about catecholamines, I could have told you that I data dumped it for an A&P test, never to think of it again, even though I gave epinephrine a lot in my professional career. Catecholamines are the drugs that exist within. A small glimpse into the Christie window is that I remember standing in my old hometown and someone asking me what I was going to go do, and I said, "Well, I'm going to go teach the world how to do drugs." And they all started cracking up, as if I was gonna teach you how to do illicit drugs or drugs outside of yourself, when in reality, the drugs exist within, right? We are the medicine. We are the pharmacology that we seek outside of us. I think one of the silliest things is that we've taken epinephrine that we make organically, and then we synthesized it, packaged it, and we sell it back to ourselves. So again, catecholamines are one of the most incredible gifts that I was given while earning tenure in academia, because I was able to comprehend it so beautifully to be able to language it now as it pertains to the way that we're existing on earth. I mean, for goodness sakes, some of us have been overdosing in the drugs that exist within since infancy. Which then translated into my ability to articulate this information to my clients. I spent 5 years in private practice. I served over 3,500 ketamine infusion sessions. And in that, I was having similar conversations with every one of my clients. And in that, I started to really recognize the importance of being able to take this wisdom and be able to give it to you guys out there in a format, in a way that's digestible, and that's where Becoming Psychedelic was born. Becoming Psychedelic is an integration program that is self-paced. It's 33 different lectures, and it allows you to understand the plant to pill to profit, the neurochemistry, the catecholamines, what that looks like from infancy, the different developmental brainwave states, and everything else that I'm super passionate about and that have been part of my origin story. And what I learned by spending so much intimate time with ketamine specifically to be able to give those who are ready to work with psychedelics and they don't want to go underground. They also don't want to just purchase mushrooms from, their friend down the street or whatever. And they also don't have the capacity to go out of country to go work with ayahuasca or spend time in Peru or go down to Mexico and experience ibogaine or 5-MeO as a combo pack. And perhaps MDMA is calling you, but you also don't, there's a lot, right? If you would have asked Christy 10 years ago to 15 years ago, there is not a chance I'd think that I'd be sitting here right now telling you that I was on a mission to create legal access to psychedelic assisted therapy and make it part of a standard of care in the medical community. 25 years of data, you guys. Ketamine infusion therapy is phenomenal as a developmental tool to navigate altered states of consciousness, for you to become the observer, to look within, and then make conscious choices if you wanted to embark on a larger journey with other psychedelics in the space. Ta-da! This is me and the mission. That is how becoming psychedelic was born and created. One of those tools, and if you are curious about ketamine infusion therapy and or you have other questions, please leave it in the comments below. Send this video to somebody that you know that you think they could benefit. And I've also created a free provider's guide, meaning how do you know what you're going to go get as a provider? It's no different than the way that we're picking our primary care, right? When you're going to work with ketamine, you do want somebody who has put love, time, and intention into it because just as great as ketamine can be, it can also be horrifying if it's done incorrectly. And that was something I was seeing over and over again. And so that's where this was born so that I could help more people on a larger platform make conscious decisions, especially when we're in a vulnerable state if we've been suffering. I'm super grateful that you are here. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please comment below, like, subscribe, do all the things to help this channel grow. And if I can answer a question, please put it in the comments below because I'm happy to make that content. Just make sure we keep it relevant. Have a wonderful day. More to come.